Hey everyone, happy November 1st. I'm excited to talk with you today, and this is nothing formal, it's actually very informal. And I want you to note that there are some things going on over the last, week and a half to 2 weeks. There's been an extreme increase in the value of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And many people, for some reason or other, not understanding why in the world they could have fees that are higher. This trend isn't new. This trend started months ago, even with those who involved with Ether-related businesses and those who involved with Tron-related businesses. And so I'm going to try and cover some of the understanding for you today and let you know there are some things you can do if you are involved with any business that you notice here and there fees occasionally or seem to be rising or off the chart. In other cases, you see they may not. I'm going to cover some of the things that are causing it and then some things you can do to help reduce it, right? We note that since the halving, crypto is exposed to grow by a huge margin, and it's starting to just, putter here and there. So what I'm going to share with you today in this specific live stream is going to give you a little better foundation of understanding of what's happening behind the scenes. And then so it will assist you in making more quality business decisions that are not based on just today, but thinking about things long term. So before I get started, I'll just say this to you today. I think today crypto is valued somewhere around 13,800 for Bitcoin, whereas just a few weeks ago, it was right a little higher than 10 and then went to 11 really quickly and then very fast jumped to 13. And not looking like it's doing what it can to get ready to cross the $14,000 mark. So I'm just going to make sure this is clear to you that there are many variables that will cause the fees to be increased. But some of the variables, you and the very companies you participate with, have an influence on those fees. And I want to talk to you about that. That's my purpose. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and start showing some slides. I may take my face away a few times just to make sure you can see the screen and see the wording. The first slide I'm going to share with you is that the buyers and the sellers have control. With Just Do, you have control of enough of the variables to reduce. You can't eliminate fees. For how long have people cried about a centralized currency? When it becomes decentralized and each individual has the power themselves, then we whine that the fees are up. We don't take any responsibility for it. So I want to make sure that that can happen. And so the buyers and the sellers, that's the consumers and the sellers, the creators and the consumers, the end users, everybody has a role. So let's take a peek. Decentralized means that you have the power. I know there are a few companies that will lie to you and make you think a company where the owner won't tell you who they are, that means decentralized. That doesn't mean that at all. It means that because you choose not to read or choose not to use your instincts, you can't feel what's wrong with that. So I'm not going to spend all day on that when I did that video a few weeks ago. But I do want you to understand is the currency is already decentralized. There's no reason for a company to be decentralized unless they intentionally don't want you to know anything. So that's the first thing. So since the currency is already decentralized, that means that there's no government, there's no third party who has total control. You do. You don't have to wait for Alan Greenspan to make a decision of what the rates will be. You don't. The fees are determined by the miners, and you have a lot to do with it. We're going to look at that. First thing I want to say is that if you control the cost, you can reduce the fees. Control the cost, you can reduce the fees. Now I know, boy, there's some big to-dos here on this one topic. A person with very little business understanding will focus on the lowest possible cost, believing that they're helping people. That is the new guy. He wants his cousin Eddie to join with him, but they're hoping that they can make the cost really low to get in. And that way his cousin can participate, right? This affects the cost of the fees. A company that believes they won't be able to get new people will lower the cost to get in. I've seen companies out there where it costs just $3. Some cost $2. Some cost $5 and $6 to get started. And that's great if you're thinking about just today, just the instant. But it's really not good for the fees. And the fees matter. You remember a few months ago when Ether prices were going through the roof? Most didn't understand that the cost of the fees were related to the complexity in the coding of the developers who created the Ether program. Greater the complexity, the lower the cost, the higher the fees. More work has to be done to process the transaction. Could you imagine? Some guy wants you to process a transaction, it might pay you 20 cents. Another guy has a transaction and, you might make $10. Well, it's already clear. Miners, when it comes to Bitcoin, will process in speed those in which they make the greatest amount of money. They process very slow those that they make the very least amount of money. So the controlling the cost, it's done on two different sides. But I want you to know by controlling the cost, you can certainly reduce the fees. What options do you have as a member of a company where you are working to create your own personal income for your family from a business that has cryptocurrency? What could you do? That's a great question. One thing you can do is you could stop whining to owners and asking them to reduce the cost. If they're weak enough, they will reduce it. If they can't, then they'll go create another one that has low, and they think they're doing you a favor, and now it's going to cost you to do business. You don't understand it now? First of all, you're going to get your payment slower. And the next thing you're going to do as a member by doing this is you're going to actually, when you think you're making $3 or $6 or $8 or $10, you may find that when you have a high enough volume, once you have enough people joining with you, you might find you're only making $1 or $2 because you've insisted upon this. It's decentralized. That means you have some power. Why not raise your understanding, raise your mental ability so that you now can determine how to reduce the fees? You don't want the fees to supersede the cost of what you're doing. And it's the main issue that a lot of the Ether programs had. It's where the fees cost 3 or 4 times more than their lowest level. This doesn't have to happen. If this is confusing you, I'm going to ask you to watch it over again when it's not live. If you have questions, type them here. I will be responding to each if you're in Facebook or if you're in YouTube. But I'll continue. What else is there? What options do you have as a company? For those of you, if you own your own MLM company or your own home business, which is Ether, Tron, or Bitcoin, or Litecoin, or some I think are using, I forgot what one of the new ones. Don't just be happy that you have something that functions. Be smart. Create something that gives you and your members long-term leverage. You don't have to give in to someone because they complain that they don't think it's cheap enough. You're in business to generate a profit, and they should get in business to generate a profit. You don't get in business because it doesn't cost much. You get in business so you can generate a profit. If you don't have it, work to save up so you can get it. That is my short-term answer, right? Without going into a lot of detail. But you have options. As a company, you alone, it's just 1 to 3 Ether companies change the cost of the fees for people all over the globe. For Ether. Complex coding with all these special what-if scenarios in it. Because with smart contracts, right, to process the transaction, they have to understand the code. And the more complex it is, the more things that have to happen before one person gets paid, another person gets it, and there's some splits, all kinds of things happening. As a company, you are creating a future mess, which means you have a short-term answer for a business. The business you're creating for people, it has the ability to last for a few months until the volumes get so high, which I didn't get to the volume yet, but as the volume goes higher and you have low cost to get in, you're going to be paying through the roof, and it's unnecessary. As a company, you want to be smart. Come up with a starting cost that makes good business sense. You're starting a company, not a welfare program, not a nonprofit program. Be smart. Make it make good business sense so a year from now you can still be in business. I'll continue. Managing the volume controls the fees, which I just covered. I'm going to take my face off of this because I can see that I'm going to be in the way. Okay. Managing the volume to control the fees. I talked about that earlier, just a few moments ago. And as I talked about it, imagine this for a second. The option that a person has when to control the volume is you will have less volume. Oh man, not. So, what options do you have as a member? If you have a lot of people joining you at the lowest possible level, and it's only $3, $5, $6, $10, $15, $20, I'm going to tell you now. Stop getting people started at that level. If the company requires you to start at that level, you ask them to increase it. I know it won't make sense today. You might feel like you're being cheated, but the opposite's happening. You lose fluidity. You lose momentum if people have to stop and wait for fees to go down. Fees will go down when crypto starts to settle. If it's going down fast or going high fast, right, you're going to have a lot of transactions, and the miners have to be able to adjust and manage their time wisely and manage their work wisely. You have a role. And I'm telling you now, most of you focus on just getting people in the lowest possible level as a member doesn't make sense to me. Get people to start higher, right? And if your company has a $3 and $5 level, I don't care what kind of currency it is, ask them to increase it. They don't have to know. A lot of company owners was just a leader in a company somewhere. They don't know a lot of the ins and outs, and you asking them might be able to help them. A lot of you leaders consider yourself consultants. Go ahead and rub that off instead of pitching them your own idea. Pitch an idea to make the company better. What options do you have as a member? What options do you have if you own your own company? I just mentioned it. Eliminate those ridiculously low costs so that you don't impact the fees where everybody has to quit anyway soon because it's not favorable. It costs them money to be in business. When you have a guy that joins and he pays $3, and when he gets paid finally for a few $3 transaction, it comes out as $1. It doesn't make good business sense anymore. So they'll just look up someone else and go somewhere else. You could do a better job by making great long-term decisions, making decisions to appease your members without thinking about how much it could hurt them more in the long run. It's like parenting. You don't give your kids what they want. You give them what's best for them. And you have to do that in business if you want your business to stick around. I will continue. Hi there. Okay. Now, where we're going to go from here is, less work for the miners will mean lower fees. How do you give them less work, Dwayne? I'm glad you've asked. You give them less work by thinking about the opposite of what I just pointed out to you. Think about the opposite I just pointed out to you. Eliminate the extreme low cost of transactions. That's to me, that's not rocket science. For me, it didn't matter if it was crypto or fiat currency. I focused on the highest one that I can afford, and I focused on the highest one the people joining could afford. Period. Right? I did not focus on convenience. I didn't focus on hoping to be a charity worker. I focused on business. You can do the same. High volume at low cost will equal high fees. If you're going to have a high volume, you want to make sure it's a higher cost because they will process your transaction faster. Some of you are taking 3 hours. I noticed there are some who said it's taken 3 days to get their money. Miners are like, I'm not worried about that right now. Hey, here's a question for you guys. If I've got, let's say 100 boxes, right, that are just, let's say they're 5 pounds each, right? I have 200 boxes, 5 pounds each. I want you to go put them on the back of my truck. Or I have 3 50-pound boxes. I want you to put them in my truck. Me personally, I'd rather lift 3 50-pound boxes than 200 5-pound boxes. So I'm going to do those first and get them out of the way. When you're doing this stuff, the miners need to consider what to start with. And so if they have a $100 transaction, that's much more rewarding than a $3 transaction. Would you rather make 11 cents? Or would you rather make $8 or $5 or $4? Miners think like that. So if they're going to do high volume, they want it to be higher cost. They repel lower cost. Not that they shouldn't have it. It just needs to make good sense, and it doesn't. So a company that has 200,000 people in it, and 70% of them are on the $3 and $4, $5 level, they didn't do anything except it caused the currency fees to go up for those people. They're going to think it's just the blockchain. They're going to say it's just the smart contract, when really they had everything to do with it. If it makes sense, great. If it doesn't make sense, just look it up and check it out yourself so you don't trip over your feet. Oh, I guess I'm over top of this. Let me move it. There you go. Didn't mean to hire. So, in contrast, the high cost of transactions have lower fees, as I just walked you through. Now, more work means higher fees. Make more long-term decisions and less emotional ones. When you make an emotional decision, come on, can you guys just make them? Could you just make it cost $10? Could you just make it cost $5? I can get a lot of people. I saw someone on the other day. It's hilarious. They want to be involved in the cryptocurrency business, but they want to do it the fake way. Well, if I have to recruit, if I have to go to work, I won't be in it. I don't know what kind of miracle you're looking for, but I have not found the person who has built wealth by doing nothing. Even when you're lied to about it, the person is actually recruiting you when they're lying to you. When they tell you, when they put a post up that says no recruiting, no selling, nothing to do, that itself is recruiting. All they do is touch your emotions so you can get excited that you don't have to do it. And then you get in. What do you do later? You complain. Nobody's doing anything for me. What's happening? You quit. But they already got paid. You have to be smart. Make long-term decisions. Since when are we afraid of work as people? I'm an African-American male. And I take pride in work. My father taught me to work. The Bible teaches me to work. Unbelievable. The wealthiest people in the world sell. The poorest people in the world don't sell. They buy. That's just not even rocket science. Selling may be work, but it's work that you get paid for. It's work that you could build wealth with. I don't understand it. You'd rather just pay your money. Some of you have been chasing leaders over the last few years, spending fortunes in this non-recruiting, non-selling world, only to constantly be making them rich where they can show you they're making $200,000 or $300,000 and you still haven't done it. All because of the fear of work. My ancestors took pride in working, not having someone do it for them, not having someone make them their dependent, but instead working. Yours did too. What a generation we have now where everyone wants it for free. So I'm going to tell you now, you want to have great business or you want to be a follower forever. This will determine it, Do you think Bill Gates apologizes for selling Xboxes or Microsoft Office? Do you think Sergey Brin apologizes for Google? You think he feels bad for selling ad space? Do you think he feels bad for selling? No. People are buying. People buy what they need. What's there to be ashamed of selling something? Well, I'll tell you what. I would be ashamed to tell someone the only way I would get into business is if I had nothing to do. That's not business. You should go back to work, go get a paper out, go wait tables, go do something else. But I'm advising you to stay away from the cryptocurrency world at all, because it's a world that will reward high for those who aren't lazy, those who are willing to work. Even though someone's lied and deceived you, who are recruiting every day, the same guy puts up 5 to 10 posts that there's no working, no recruiting, and that's all they're doing. That's selling and recruiting. The fact that they're doing that and the fact that you fall for it should create shame in your genes, in your very DNA and your genetics. So work on that. Now, I can't see what you're saying to me yet. I can't see any of that. I'm going to chat after. But I want you to note, stop it. You don't have to make these short-term decisions. It's like renting furniture. Save up to get it first, then get it. But if you rent it, right? I don't even get into that concept, but just don't do that. What do we call this? Well, I call it something else. I'll go over it in a minute, but it's this being a prisoner of the moment. You don't have to do that. So, what kind of biz op should I join? Well, that's a good question. Well, any kind that doesn't lie to you, any kind that you could see, you can literally see a pattern of what's needed to create an income. If nothing's used to create an income, then you're in a scam. Nothing's done. All you have to do is pay. That within itself makes it that. So find something that they at least give you what things you need to do to create an income. If there's something you could do, then you can generate one. That's it. That's good. But if all you have to do is pay, and there's nothing to do, well, I'm not sure. You can do your own math on that. But it's just demonstrated year after year. You've demonstrated. You've helped the rest of us to see it because you keep joining them. And when they go away and you have to go find something else, it's been happening all this time. So, yeah, how do you choose one? Choose one where it's evident. If I do this and this, which means that's work, in return, I'm getting paid for the value that I've just given through the work I've done. Ta-da! That's the kind of biz op you get started with. The focus of your team when it comes to keeping the fees lower has got to be focusing on the highest level in which one can afford. That's the best way to go. That way the fees don't beat you up. You can get 50 transactions of the lowest level in your company. You will pay for that. It won't come out in the first few transactions. It's when you start getting up the higher volumes. If you're in the lowest level and that's all you do, when you finally go to make a larger transaction, you're just not going to know what happened. The miners know they got you covered. Oh, it's that guy again. Oh, well, don't worry. We'll get him on this next transaction. See, it doesn't always have to happen on the same transaction. It could be that you've taken 100 of these minuscule transactions. They can't get their money out of that. But when you go to make a $250 transaction, it might cost you $40. You'll think it's that one transaction, but it's your behavior itself. As a team, focus. Focus on more than just today. That's the answer. More than just today. Can you do it? Of course. So, I'm wondering if I should give some hot tips or go and chat with you. I will give some hot tips. Be smart. Work long term. Don't work short term. Short term is a poverty principle that will leave you there. You'll feel right, but you won't be right. There'll be zero evidence of you being correct. And if you've told people no over the last couple of years because it involved work, then you got to go and look at what you've been doing with the not working part. See how that's working out for you. I believe that if you're a prisoner of the moment, the only thing you're going to make decisions around is right now. And those are the worst kind of decisions to make. To be pleased for today, only to unfortunately suffer for much of the time tomorrow, it makes no sense. Being a prisoner of the moment is not good. You can make a decision around what happens today, but you really ought to consider, what does this mean for me tomorrow? What does it mean for my family? What does it mean for other people on my team? A week from now, a month from now. Here's a question for you. At the moment, Bitcoin is 13,800 something. But what if, as we get into November, right? Further deeper into November, like the 5th, the 10th. What if by the time we get to the 20th of November, it's at 20,000 already? Do you not understand? The shorter the time frame where there's a speed of an increase in Bitcoin, they're going to have higher fees. What are you going to do when all you're doing is focusing on the smaller ones? You're going to make sure that you're taxed higher than those that aren't. It's interesting. It's like people say you should tax the rich and don't tax the poor. Well, in this decentralized market, it does the opposite. The higher the transaction, the less fees they charge you and the faster they produce it. The lower the transaction, the higher the fee and the longer it takes them to get it to you. Don't be a prisoner of the moment. Think long term. Long-term wealth versus short-term feeling of being wealthy. That is when you're only working to get $500 a day because you never even imagined what it would be to make $500,000 next year, later this year. You have focus on just today, and that's all you're going to have. Wealth is based on the building of assets, not on the feeling like you're rich by getting enough money to get good credit. It goes deeper. There's more to it. Teach your teams and encourage your companies to make to make levels start a little higher than they have been doing. That is the answer. I believe that I put myself in the way. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to cover the wording so you can see it. You need to see this. Teach your teams, right? If they have a higher, teach your teams and encourage your company to make your levels start higher than they have been doing so that you can minimize the fees together. When you behave well and the company behaves well, together you can create something special. I can't say it any plainer than that. You can do your thing. You notice this was not about my company. It was about any company you're involved with. You can practice these steps so you can reduce the cost together of these fees. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to see what questions you're asking here on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're at. And I'm going to actually start answering those questions. But I appreciate you. Thank you. Mucho gusto en conocerte. No, anyway, thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and begin to check out your comments. Thanks.